All right, welcome back to the First and Gold podcast. I'm your host, Sam Gold, and week 5 is almost in the books. We're filming this on Monday. I got my Chiefs jersey on for Chiefs Saints tonight. I'm excited, but we got all these other games to talk about. Man, I mean, this was probably the best slate of games, I want to say, in this podcast's history. Now, we got to do some revisionist history. I'm sure, let me say regular season, because, of course, this podcast was going on during the 2021 playoffs, and that divisional round weekend is probably the best weekend of football of all time. But this is up there. There's a ton of games to talk about. The last few weeks, I've just written some notes and some major storylines. This time, I'm going to go through basically almost every game. There's 5 games I'm not going to fully talk about. Get that off the bat. Bears-Panthers, Browns-Commanders, Dolphins-Pats, Raiders-Broncos, and Packers-Rams. So I'm not going to, go through those games in full. We're going to have our Week 6 predictions at the end of the episode. So if I didn't talk about those teams, I'll, give little tidbits about them later. But there's so much to get into. I mean, this is crazy. I just sounded like Al gave me a look. I don't know what I just did with my voice there. But it's the beast ready to come out and talk about the game. That's what it is. I just have so much to talk about. I just referred to myself as the beast, so I gotta stop. Anyways, okay. Let's go in chronological order. We got Bucs-Falcons. Never got to talk about that game yet. Thursday Night Football, 36-30 overtime win for the Falcons at home. Kirk O'Chains throws 509 yards and 4 touchdowns in prime time. He now has 2 primetime wins with the Falcons in the short season so far. I mean, probably I wanted to say this was the game of the year, and it was up to that point. But we have so many other games on here that were amazing that this one almost got kind of shoved back into the fold, and people forget about it. So, man, I mean, where do I even start with this game? It was an offensive explosion. It finally felt like we had a good Thursday night football game. And also, when I was watching the game, I kind of realized, and, the Chiefs played the Falcons in Atlanta on Sunday Night Football, but I kind of miss, Atlanta primetime games. I don't know what it is. Maybe just because those 2 games so far were so good. But I don't know. There's something nostalgic about watching the Falcons at home in primetime, especially with Al Michaels calling the game. It just felt like, I was younger again in those Matt Ryan days. So that was nice to see. But for the game itself, I mean, the obvious storyline where both quarterbacks look great. The Falcons got a much-needed win. There was many ups and downs, and it was a huge roller coaster ride, not only for the Falcons, but for their fans, I'm sure. That's probably the Falcons' best win since maybe their last playoff win, honestly. They haven't really had a lot to hang their hat on. Coming into this game, a lot of people were nervous if Kirk Cousins really was going to, take them to the playoffs. And I think with this win, not only divisionally, now that they have the tiebreaker over the Bucs, they have a better chance of winning the division. But I think just knowing, obviously Kirk isn't going to play like this all season. This is definitely probably going to be his best game. But just knowing that offensive explosiveness has that potential, and it is possible now with not only Drake London being a solid wide receiver 1 finally, and this is without Bijan playing well in this game, and honestly all season so far. He's been fine, but he hasn't lived up to a star running back potential yet. So the fact that hasn't even gotten sorted out yet, and their defense didn't even play that well, and they still won and had played that great offensively, that's a great sign for the Falcons. If you're a Bucs fan, look, I wanna say hold your head high, and you still should, because this was not on Baker. Baker played a very, very good game. He had 3 touchdown passes. He had under 200 yards, but his completion percentage was solid. I wouldn't be too nervous yet. The Bucs are still a very good team. They pretty much won this entire game up to overtime. They were the better team, I think, and they just happened to get unlucky with the coin toss. The Falcons won the coin toss. Bucky Irving. I mean, I love Bucky Irving. It sucks. I have him on my bench in fantasy, and I keep saying I feel like he's going to become a full-time starter very soon. He looks more explosive than Rachaad White. And then, of course, he comes in. He had a few nice plays in this game, but he just fumbled away at the end when they could have taken at least another field goal. And then Younghoe Koo, he had a rough game. He missed 2 field goals in this game. Well, 1 was blocked, but, 2 misses technically. He had a 58-yarder to win the game last week against another division opponent, the Saints. And then he goes out and puts up a huge field goal. I think it was above 50 yards again to take him into overtime. So you got all facets of the scoring offense, coming into play with Younghoe Koo. I love shouting him out on this podcast because he's a New Jersey native. So that was great to see him hit that. And then they won the toss, and from there, Kadarrell Hodge, of all people. Everybody was getting a piece of the pie with Kirk Cousins. I think there was a point in like the first or second quarter, you already threw to like six different receivers. So that was a lot of fun to watch. I mean, what a great game. We'll get to it later. I forget who the Bucs play in week 6, but we'll get to it in the predictions. So it should be an interesting ride. A much-needed win for Kirk Cousins. He was doing the swag surf after the game with the fans. It's just fun. It's just fun to see guys like him and Baker Mayfield become one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL because there's been a lot of doubters for them. And look, I'm still probably one of their doubters in terms of are they going to go to the Super Bowl? I don't think so. But, man, what a classic on Thursday Night Football of all things. So let's move on. Jets, Vikings. This one had Alessandro basically shitting himself in the fourth quarter. I mean, he was texting me like, I'm so nervous. I don't even want to look at the screen right now because he loves both teams. I mean, at the end of the day, Al, are you more of a Vikings fan or a Jets fan? And forget about who's better right now. Because I think you should be happier that the Vikings won.
I am. I mean, it depends. Like, if I'm in a house full of Jets fans, I'm rooting for the Vikings. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay, you're one of those, like, go against the grain.
Everyone in my family is Jets fans.
Yeah.
I love the Jets forever, but I love the Vikings more.
I was going to say, because you're the only one that truly picked the Vikings. Like, you're only a Jets fan. Cause, yeah, exactly. So I feel like you're happy that the Vikings got away with the win here. Okay. Skull. There we go. There we go. I mean, jeez. Like, they didn't even play a great game, and they still won. Sam Darnold didn't play a good game. I think he had 2 interceptions, right? So the fact that they won 23-17 against the Jets, it was kind of similar. It was a lower scoring version of the game from last week against the Packers, where they were basically dominating for that entire first half. I mean, the Jets definitely got lucky. They were able to put up some points before halftime with the Allen Lazard touchdown. We'll get to the Jets in a second. But the Vikings defense is so for real. Brian Flores, I know they'll never give out a Coach of the Year award for an assistant coach, but if there's ever one out there, do they have an assistant Coach of the Year award? Brian Flores deserves it. And I think Kevin O'Connell is probably in the lead right now because they're 5-0. It's the Vikings. No one expected that. I think I picked them to be 7-10. But the fact, and I said this, that Sam Darnold is elite in September. Al's pointing at me because I think you're trying to figure out if there's an assistant coach award.
They do.
There is.
AP gives it out.
There you go.
Associated Press. Yeah, there you go.
That's what I was saying. Sometimes they have these awards where they don't announce it during NFL honors, but it's kind of like, any other award show where you get like a side one that no one really talks about. Here's the thing with Sam Darnold. And Al, I want you to listen to this because I'm not worried. I'm not worried solely because their defense is great and Justin Jefferson's healthy. Although I'm a little bit worried about Aaron Jones. He got a hip injury. Hopefully he's not out for too long. Even though I'm happy for you, even though I'm happy for the Vikings, they're 5-0. I'm still a little worried about Sam Darnold because I said that he's an elite September quarterback. I've been saying this all season. He's proven this with the Panthers. And it's October now, and he didn't look that good. I'm sorry. He didn't look that good. I'll give him a pass. I'm not going to say he's going to start regressing. But all I'm saying, they finally played good defense in the Jets. It's in London. Maybe he was a little jet lagged. It's against his former team. He's a little nervous. Revenge game, I don't know. I just think that Sam Darnold needs to prove that he could still have the types of games he had in the first 4 weeks. But that's all. I think their defense for now will carry them. And Justin Jefferson, you're giving me a look. I'm sorry. All right, I'll move on. Actually, no, I can't move on. I got to talk about the Jets for a second as well. How did I forget? Look, is Aaron Rodgers washed? Compared to how he was 2021 and back, yes. Can he still make some great plays? Of course. But, man, is he frustrated? Is he lacking chemistry right now? I feel like his accuracy and his timing is off so far. I mean, even with the Stephon Gilmore sealed it with an interception at the end, it felt like Aaron Rodgers just didn't have that connection or communication with Mike Williams. Mike Williams didn't even turn around. It was supposed to be a fade pass. And even if it was, or not a fade pass, a back shoulder pass, even if it was a back shoulder pass, Aaron Rodgers didn't place it correctly. And there was a few of these throws. He had, 3 interceptions in this game? I think this was his first time in his career, or maybe only his second time, that he had multiple interceptions in the first quarter. So that's an issue for the Jets. They play the Bills, who just came off of another loss as well. They're going to be hungry. They play the Bills on Monday Night Football. The Jets could be sitting here at 2-4 in a week's time. So I'm definitely concerned. Look, I wasn't expecting the Jets to come in and beat the Vikings in London. I still think the Vikings are the better team. I knew they were going to struggle a little bit against their defense. So it really still goes back to the Jets-Broncos game. They shouldn't have lost that. Although the Broncos, I'm not going to talk about them too much. I got to give props to their defense. It's phenomenal. But man, Aaron Rodgers looks frustrated out there. I don't even know if Devontae Adams is watching this offense right now. I don't even think he really wants to come to the Jets. He probably wants to go to the Ravens. I would love Jets fans to comment below and just tell me what they're thinking right now, because it's almost mean at this point. It's almost torture from the football gods. I'm sure Joe Namath sold his soul to guarantee that Super Bowl win back in the 60s. And this is why the Jets are like this. But it's almost mean that they beat the Patriots in the way that they did on Thursday night at home for their home opener. And then they just have these next 2 weeks. It's just, I feel bad at this point. I just feel bad. Aaron Rodgers looks frustrated. It's a mess. It's the Jets. I mean, we use the term same old Lions. I feel like now that the Lions are good, we maybe need to shift that to the Jets. Same old Jets. There we go. All right. Well, now it's time to go to the 1 o'clock slate. Let's start with a game I'm not going to spend too much time on compared to the other ones. Colts-Jaguars, which was a shootout. It ended 37-34. I didn't expect it to blow up that much. It's funny, I picked the Jags to win their first game of the year. I was right, because the Colts just for some reason cannot win in Jacksonville. It keeps on. I think now it's an 11-year streak, 12-year streak of them not winning. Since 2013, they haven't won a game in Jacksonville. I don't understand what happens when they go down there. Is it something about the weather? Is it a weird vibe with Jacksonville and the fans shouting, Duval? Do you guys look super unintimidating in the Florida sun wearing your all-white, boring uniforms? I don't know what it is with the Colts, but they can't win. I just feel like the Colts are so irrelevant. I mean, we made a joke about it in our shout out our AFC how to beat, what was it called? How to fix every AFC team? That's what it was called. And we literally couldn't, we made a joke, we couldn't find anything for the Colts. And it's true, like, I want to feel bad. I don't necessarily feel bad that they lost this game. I'm not rooting for, like, I don't care about the Colts. Even with Joe Flacco. I feel like Joe Flacco's story was better with the Browns. He played well in this game. I mean, both quarterbacks played well. I mean, Joe Flacco had 359 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I think he should stay the starter for now. Even though they lost, it's not them. It's the Colts defense. Their run defense is a huge issue. I mean, Tank Bigsby, of all people, who I think is now becoming the running back 1 for the Jaguars. He took over in that game. He had 2 great touchdown runs, breaking tackles. He looks electric. It's a nice compliment for Travis Etienne, who is just not really showing out for them at this point. It's a disappointing. It's kind of like Leonard Fournette. Like, he's not bad, but he just wasn't the guy everybody thought he was going to be. Keep an eye out on that. I think Tank Bigsby might be the running back 1 now. But yeah, I mean, Trevor Lawrence, 371 yards, for 2 touchdowns and a pick. Very solid. His best game of the year by far. And maybe I was a little bit mean to the Jaguars this year. I know I said they're the worst team in the NFL, and they were showing signs of it. But you look back, Week 1, they blew it. They only lost by 3 points. Week 2, they only lost by 5 points. They did get destroyed by the Bills. And then they lost on a last-second touchdown in Houston, and then they won this game. So they're not as bad as I think a lot of people are saying. I messed up on that. I think they'd beat the Panthers easily. But look, I mean, I kind of expected this to happen, not only for the luck that the Colts have going down there to Jacksonville and always losing, but it just felt like it had to happen. The Jags can't be that bad where they start 0-5. It just didn't feel right. You know, they're wearing their throwback uniforms, which were awesome. It felt like they had to win in those, which, look, now they got their first win of the season. Maybe you actually switch back to those for good, because those are immeasurably better. I think they ruined it with the black end zones, though. They should have went teal end zones. Anyways, though, it was a fun shootout. Alec Pierce just loves to catch a 60-yard touchdown every other week, and nobody's ever going to talk about that in 10 years, but I'll remember that. Shout out Alec Pierce. Anyways, yeah, Jags, enjoy your first win. You got to go to London next week. Your hometown, basically, so maybe you can get another one. Let's talk about Bills-Texans. Another close one between 2 teams who have Super Bowl aspirations this year. It was a good game. It started off as the Texans just completely dominated. They were up, 17-0, 17-3. Nico Collins hit a huge touchdown and then pulled his hamstring. He was the number 1 receiver coming into this game. Hopefully he's not out for too long. That's a big loss for the Texans if so. Here's the thing with the Texans. I've been saying this a couple times this season. Keep an eye out on them. I don't think they're as good as people think. They're a little overrated. They're not playing up to par. But I've actually done a 180, in my opinion, on the Texans. I'm going to compare them to the Chiefs of the last 2 years right now because they are learning to win ugly, win close games, and win when they're not playing their best. And that is a piece of what makes a championship caliber team. Now, yes, they got blown up by the Vikings, but hey, they're 5-0, their best team in the NFL right now. So let's wash that away. All their other wins, they've shown that even though they're not perfect right now, it's still early in the season, CJ Stroud still looks very comfortable in the pocket. He doesn't care like when pressure moves away. He just kind of scoots to the side. He's not like his eyes aren't darting around. He's not making bad decisions. He's just such a great, accurate passer. So I'm not worried about him at all. And just watching the Texans reminds me a lot of the Chiefs in that they don't really care. They're not out here to come win flashy, 40-10 every week. They're not. They're going to do what they need to do. They're going to save their best plays. DeMeco Ryans is a very smart coach. They're going to save their best plays for December and January when they actually make the playoffs because they're definitely going to win their division. They're 4-1 now. They're a good team. I think the top 3 teams in the AFC right now are the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Texans. And I'm afraid of the Texans. I think the Chiefs could very well lose to them in December. That's going to be a huge game coming up later on this year. And yeah, I've done a complete 180. I was kind of falling into the trap of, the Texans honestly are just... They're kind of whatever. They're fine. They're winning games, but I'm not that impressed. But you know what? Watching this game made me realize that they're not trying to, show. They're not trying to show their cards too much right now, and they're doing enough to win the tough, close games at the end, just like how the Chiefs do. They pulled away with this. They took advantage of the Bills making stupid decisions at the end. They trusted their kicker, kind of like a Harrison Butker does it, with a 59-yarder to win the game. So I like where the Texans are at right now. Now for the Bills, probably Josh Allen, one of Josh Allen's worst games in the last few years. He was 9 of 30 in this game. 9 of 30. Yeah, you heard that right. Less than a third of his passes completed. He suffered what looked like a concussion, and then he went right back into the game. I don't know if I like that. I know they understand he wants to win, but that looked like a pretty bad hit. He also hurt his ankle on the same play, so I guess we'll see how that works out for the rest of the week. Luckily, they have an extra day of rest. It's a Monday night game next week against the Jets, so we'll see. But, man, this was a rough time all around for the Bills. Now they'll fall to 3-2 after starting 3-0. I feel like the Bills do this every single year at this point. They show out in September. They start off hot, and then they have these weird losses in October where then you start doubting them, and then they end up making a run at the end of the year and make the playoffs and most likely lose in the divisional round. So it feels like right now that's where the Bills are headed. I'm not panicking on them, but if we're talking about Bills-Texans exactly, we got to talk about the end of the game. It was 2020. They were basically pinned back into the end zone. I mean, anytime Josh Allen dropped back, he was in his own end zone. And here's the thing. The Texans, people are ragging on the Bills because they threw it 3 times. But that's not even my issue. The Texans had 3 timeouts. They were getting the ball back regardless, unless the Bills got a first down. It's the fact that they not only risked absolute disaster in possibly the Texans getting a safety because Josh Allen kept dropping back into the end zone, but he just kept throwing these bomb passes and looking for these huge plays. All that matters right now, since the Texans had 3 timeouts, is field position. Just punt it so you can guarantee that Kaimi Fairbairn's is not going to go out there and hit a 50-plus yarder, okay? That's all you had to do. And instead, you throw these, you call these horrible plays, when all you had to do was maybe do a draw up the middle or even a short pass to get out in space. Give yourself some space. And the Bills, this is Sean McDermott once again. Like, they just, sometimes they look great and they're on a hot streak, and then they do stuff like this. They could have easily had a chance to win this game. I know James Cook only had 20 carries, which is a lot, but I think you should have fed him even more in this game. Just bad decision-making for the Bills. Such an October Bills thing to do. So, I don't know what's going on with them. And hopefully they'll bounce back against the Jets because they could have had that one. That's big implication for seeding if they're going to try to win a division and the Texans are going to win their division. Now the Texans have that over the Bills. So, tough look there at the end of the game. Just a weird one. But it was a fun game overall. Let's go to Ravens-Bengals. A 41-38 win in overtime. The Ravens won this game. Where do I even start? I mean, oh my gosh. I was watching this with my dad. He was on the edge of his seat this entire game. We were getting to the end. They had the lead at halftime. The Bengals had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. And then watching the missed kick at the end, I was like, Dad, like, we're going to see Bengals Giants next week. They could be 2-3. This kick right here can turn their entire season around. This right here. And then the holder, man, what's his name? I have it written down. Rico. Who's Ryan Rico? I don't even know who that is. He messes up the hold. It's just the most Bengals blunder of all time. I don't understand how my dad deals with this every year. Oh my gosh. And then they miss the kick. And then Derrick Henry just runs all over them. And then the Ravens win it. I don't get it with the Bengals. And obviously, you could say, and I'm going to say this, their defense, it sucks so much. It's the worst defense in the NFL. I don't care what anyone says. Every third down play, that's funny. It feels like they hold the Ravens to third down on every drive. And then they just give up these like 3rd and 7 so easily. Someone's always wide open in the middle of the field. And you're just like, not that many pieces changed from last year for the Bengals defense. It's got to be a coaching issue. It's got to be the fact that somebody feels unmotivated. There's not a good leader. I don't know what's going on with the Bengals defense. It's the worst in the NFL. It's ruining their chance at Burrow being in his prime. It's ruining the Bengals' chance of having both Higgins and Chase healthy with Burrow. I don't get it. They're just wasting away these great offensive performances. I mean, wipe away week 1. They've scored at least 25 points every game. In the last 3 games, they scored over 33. So this is just a disaster. Lamar and Burrow both combined for 9 passing touchdowns in this game. What an offensive explosion. It seems like every time these two teams play each other, Jamar Chase goes off and Lamar Jackson goes off. And that's exactly what happened here. It was an instant classic game. But the reason why I sound so pent up and pissed off right now is not only because I'm pissed off for my dad just watching these games every week where they blow it, but it's like, and it's a little bit of an ego thing because I picked the Bengals to win the Super Bowl and I want them to be better so I can be right. Well, I don't really want to be right because I want the Chiefs to win. But anyways, this just shouldn't be happening. Like, it's just such a shame to watch a team waste away their prime like this. And now, once Higgins is going to be gone and you got to pay Chase, like, this whole team is going to have to do a redo here. And now Bengals fans are calling for Zach Taylor to be fired. And there's just so much decision-making to be had with this team. It's a disaster. Burrow goes out there, says they're not a championship team. He's right. They're 1-4. Now, luckily, they have the Bengals and the Browns coming up. But still, even if you win those 2 games, you're 3-4. It's just a bad spot to be in. And this is different from other seasons because the last 2 years where they started off slow, they didn't start off this bad. And their defense wasn't this bad. And their players didn't look that unmotivated. That kick just was the nail in the coffin. And, I mean, I'm looking on here. I can't have faith in the Bengals anymore. I just can't. I can't. If they make the playoffs, cool. Maybe they have a chance. But at this point, I'm sorry, Dad. I know you're listening to this. Cover your ears. I'm giving up on the Bengals. I'm giving up. I am waving the white flag. I completely got my Super Bowl prediction wrong. The Bengals are not winning the Super Bowl this year. They're just not. They're just not. It's a shame. Let me be a little more positive. Let's talk about the Ravens, although their defense looked bad too. They've kind of looked weird this season. They've had some good games. They've had some really bad moments. You know what's funny? Let's talk about Lamar Jackson for a second. 4 touchdowns. He had the play of the year where he absolutely stiff-armed a defender, threw it across his body to hit Isaiah Likely. Here's the funny thing with Lamar Jackson. Here's the funny thing with the Ravens in general. They're 3-2. They're like inches and weird plays away from rather being like 5-0 or like 1-4. Like every game has just been a heart attack for them except for last week against the Bills. But I think, and Lamar Jackson won MVP last year. I think Lamar is playing better than he did last year. And he's just making these wild plays that, I mean, my dad and I were watching and there was a point, obviously my dad was mad that they were giving up all these third downs and whatever. But there's a point where you just have to sit there and be like, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, Lamar Jackson is just a magician. He's the best quarterback in the NFL right now. Him and Jaden Daniels are the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And guess what? We have a treat at 1 o'clock, sadly, but we have a treat. They play each other next week. That's going to be a great game. So the fact that Lamar is going out here playing this well and they're only 3-2, yes, maybe that's a concern. But, I mean, as a Chiefs fan, thank God we won and beat them in week 1 because they look scary right now. Derrick Henry looks good. Zay Flowers finally had a great game. Mark Andrews had a catch, which is a big deal these days. So, I mean, I'm just looking at my notes, and it's just a bunch of positives about Lamar and a bunch of negatives about the Bengals, and that was just the story of this game. Wild, probably one of the best games of the year for sure. And yeah, just wow. I'm in shock. I mean, I said all I needed to say about this game. Couple 4 o'clock games. Giants Seahawks. So I picked the Giants as my upset alert last week to win. This was without Malik Neighbors and Devin Singletary, and they went out there and won 29-20. They had some wild plays in this game. Not only them, just the game in general. To start, who is it? Was it Tyrone Tracy or was it the other running back, Eric Gray? Maybe it was Eric Gray. He fumbled on the one. Rayshon Jenkins from the Seahawks goes and takes it all the way to the house. That's how the game started. Just completely bad luck and a crazy play, defensive play. This whole 4 o'clock slate had some weird defense, special teams plays, and touchdowns. Then the Giants just shut down Geno. I mean, Geno had a good stat line in this game, but it felt like the Giants' defense was controlling this game. And let's have a conversation about the Giants for a second, because if it wasn't for Malik Neighbors, of all people, who's been great this year, if it wasn't for him dropping that 4th down pass against the Commanders, we'd be sitting here talking about the Giants at 3-2 with a winning record. And look, I have these stats up. The Giants aren't that bad. They really aren't. And I was completely wrong about them at the beginning of the year. Take away week 1. Week 1 was a disaster. That was terrible. But since week 1, after week 1, Daniel Jones has had 6 touchdowns and 1 interception. And he's looked very solid. And a lot of that's Malik Neighbors, but this was the game. You go into a rowdy environment against the Seahawks, who are 3-1, just came off of a tough loss. They're going to want to win it. And you didn't fold. I mean, Daniel Jones didn't make any mistakes in this game. I think he was over 200 yards, no interceptions, and just, what was it, 1 or 2 touchdowns? And the Giants, man, he threw a perfect touchdown pass to Darius Slayton. And listen, the Giants play the Bengals next week. I'm going to that game. I mentioned that earlier. That's going to be really weird to see if the Giants can just end the Bengals season, because I don't know. I said this last week. They remind me of the 2020 Giants, where they weren't as bad as their record showed. I'm very intrigued by them. They became one of the teams that I didn't even want to see on my television screen. They're one of the worst teams to watch in prime time. I didn't care. I didn't even want to talk about them for the rest of the season after week 1. But now I'm intrigued to see what they do for the rest of the year, because they're sitting at 2-3. The NFC's wide open for the wild card spot. So I think Daniel Jones is actually not playing that bad this year. Giants fans, comment down below what you think. You got Tyrone Tracy now, who just filled in for Devin Singletary, a 5th-round rookie running back. He looked great. He had over 100 yards in his first game. The Seahawks, it just feels like, of course, they're going to start 3-0 and then probably be like 3-3 because they play the Niners next week. They're just slowly fading into the same 9-8 team that they are with Geno Smith every year at this point. So we'll keep an eye out on that, but I'm not that impressed. All right. Cardinals-Niners. Quickly go through this one. It was a weird game. The 49ers are probably the best 2-3 team to exist since the Chiefs went 2-3 in 2021. Very similar to the 2021 Chiefs. Just coming off of a Super Bowl loss. They have a lot of their defensive pieces still intact that were good this previous season, but they're just not performing as well as you want them to, although Fred Warner last week had a touchdown, and then they had a block kick touchdown, which is great in this game, or block punt, whatever it was. Still making plays here and there, and just like the Rams game, they blew it. They were up 23-10 at halftime. They didn't score a single point after that. Brock Purdy was very hit and miss. He had 2 interceptions. They were both tipped, I believe. The final one, he got his arm hit, so that was unlucky, but yeah, it's just weird vibes with the 49ers. Now, I think they'll definitely make the playoffs, and I think they'll be fine. As long as they're healthy, we'll see if Christian McCaffrey even comes back this season. That's just a disaster. But Jordan Mason's good, other than the fumble in this game. That pissed me off because I had him in fantasy. But look, props to the Cardinals. I said this at the beginning of the year. I think I picked them to go, 6-11? I said they were going to be frisky. This is the definition of frisky, where occasionally Kyler will just have a good game. He's so confusing. I don't get it with Kyler Murray. Sometimes he looks like one of the best talents in the NFL, and then sometimes he just looks completely uninterested, and he makes these dumb decisions, and he just doesn't play that well. So this was one of those games where he did play pretty well. He had the 50-yard touchdown run to open the game. I actually am not changing my opinion as a whole for both of these teams after this game. It's just a fluky, weird loss for the 49ers again. But I think the 49ers will be fine, and I think the Cardinals are not going to make the playoffs. This isn't, this game, just because they beat the Niners doesn't mean that they're suddenly great now. And then Steelers-Cowboys last night, definitely weird in the fact that I had to wait an hour and 25 minutes for the game to even start. It was a lightning delay, so that already gave weird vibes right off the bat. And, everybody's saying that game was shit. Well, what did you expect? It was a Steelers game. You finally got one in primetime, so they had to sit through 4 quarters uninterrupted watching that. But it was a good game at the end. 20-17. The Cowboys pull through with 30 seconds to go. Game-winning touchdown to Jalen Tolbert. And it was just a classic matchup. It just felt gritty. It was rainy. The uniforms going at it. It was just such a classic Sunday night football game between the Steelers and the Cowboys. Another great time. I mean, the Cowboys 8 years ago in Pittsburgh, last time they were here, ended that game with a late fourth quarter touchdown with Ezekiel Elliott. Now they did it again with Jalen Tolbert. Very similar game, a little lower scoring this time because the defenses are better. Dak Prescott had a couple interceptions or a couple turnovers, and look, he just pulled through at the end. This was a big game for the Cowboys, specifically because the Commanders are good now. They were 2-2 coming into this. They needed this. Dak Prescott, although he didn't have a great game, he redeemed himself in a tough environment in the fourth quarter, just taking what the defense was giving him, not panicking, and then throwing a very great pass to Jalen Tolbert in the end. He made a good catch. I'm a little angry because I had Jake Ferguson in fantasy, who did good, but they had a design play for him on 3rd and goal, and he was just covered well, and I thought he was going to get a touchdown. Anyways, no one cares about that. But yeah, props to the Cowboys. They pulled out in a tough moment there. It was a great classic game. Another great game this week. Every game I'm talking about has been so good. This was a great slate. And then right before we get to our preview for Week 6, Justin Fields, he's fine, but it just feels like he's still not comfortable in this offense yet. He's getting more and more comfortable getting the ball out quicker in shorter yardage situations, and he still runs the ball fine, but it just feels like he's not confident yet in pushing the ball down the field. And George Pickens was frustrated. He didn't have a great stat line. And look, at the end of the day, I think the Cowboys are still a slightly more talented team. TJ Watt was a game wrecker once again. He was great. But this is a classic Steelers. They start off 3-0. They got to get to 9-8 somehow. So yeah, they're going to lose this game, maybe their next game, go to 3-3. But yeah, that was a fun slate. There we go. I'm like almost out of breath talking about these games because there's so much to talk about. But all right, let's jump into the games for the Week 6 slate. Here we go. All right, Thursday Night Football. Seattle host the 49ers. Both teams coming off of a loss. I just mentioned the 49ers. I think they'll be fine. This is a bounce-back game, even though it's in Seattle. I'm going with the 49ers to win this 24-10. I don't think it'll be close. London, Jags, Bears. Now, the Bears, I didn't get to talk about the Bears on the podcast, but Caleb Williams is looking better and better each week. The Jags just came off of a big win. This is basically to save their season for the Jaguars, but I think the Bears are the better team and the better defense, so they're going to go out in London, in the Jags' hometown, and beat them 23-20. All right, let's move to the 1 o'clock slate, and now we have Saints, Bucks. I think the Saints, I did pick the Saints to beat the Chiefs on the podcast, but now that it's game day, I want the Chiefs to win. So let's say the Saints lose this. So now I'm actually going to pick them to bounce back against the Bucks, and both teams move to 3-3. Let's pick the Saints to win it 24-23. Game of the week, possibly. I don't know how this is at 1 o'clock, but it's Commanders, Ravens, Jaden Daniels versus Lamar Jackson, 2 top 5 quarterbacks for this season going at it. I'm excited for this one. But I'm going to pick the home team. I'm sorry, Commanders fans. The Ravens are going to want this one just a little bit more. Jaden Daniels isn't quite ready to go out there and beat the Ravens in Baltimore. So I'm going to pick the Ravens in a close game, a fun one, 34-30. All right, we got Packers, Cardinals. I think the Packers are going to go out and win this one at home against Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray just had a good game, so it feels like he's going to have a worse one now. Jordan Love, this is going to be your best game of the season so far against a bad defense. Let's pick the Packers to win it 27-16. Colts, Titans in Tennessee. I don't know if Will Levis is playing in this game yet, but I don't think it matters. The Colts are going to win this game. They're the slightly better team, especially if Joe Flacco plays. I like the offense a lot better when he's in. So yeah, they make it close usually anyways, so I'll pick the Colts to win it 24-20. And then Patriots, Texans. The Texans right now, I just talked about how good they were this entire podcast. They're going to go out into New England. I don't even know if the Patriots are going to win many more games this year. So let's pick the Texans to win this game 37-10. It's not even going to be close. All right, our final 1 o'clock game. Browns, Eagles. The Eagles just coming off of a bye. The Browns, for some reason, still going to start Kevin Stefanski. So I got to pick the Eagles in this one. I think it'll be an ugly game. Let's go with Philly to win this 20-12. All right, we got 3 4 o'clock games. The first one, Raiders Steelers in Vegas. The Steelers just lost. The Raiders just lost. Overall, I think the Steelers are still a way better team. TJ Watt is going to give Gardner Minshew a bunch of fits in this game. I don't think it's going to be close. Actually, it might be close because it's the Steelers. But Steelers are going to win this game. It's a bounce back. I'll pick them to win it 20-13. Panthers host the Falcons up next. I hope this isn't a trap game for Kirk Cousins. He just came off of a huge win. The Falcons need this one. They got to go to 4-2, hopefully. Do I pick an upset alert? I'm looking at the rest of my games here. All right, let's do it. My first upset alert of the week. Probably my only upset alert. Let's pick the Panthers to win this. It just feels like a game where the Falcons are going to fold for absolutely no reason. Let's pick the Panthers to win it 19-17. Big game at 4:25. I'm baffled that Bills, Jets, and Bengals, Giants is on primetime when we have Ravens, Commanders, and now Lions, Cowboys. This is going to be a great game. I'm going to pick the Lions to win it. However, in Dallas, get a little bit of revenge for that Week 17 game last year. Here we go. Lions win it 27-24. All right, Giants, Bengals at MetLife, Sunday Night Football. The Bengals crucially need this one to even have a glimpse of hope for their season. I'm going to this game with my dad. Very excited about it. So, you know what? I'll pick the Bengals. Why not? Even though I don't have a lot of hope for them at this point, I'm going to pick the Bengals to win this and bounce back. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be close. But I'm going to go with them to win it 22-20. All right, finally, the Monday Night Football game at MetLife once again. Jets, Bills. As much as I want the Jets to pull their shit together and win another game this season, I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, they're going to win another game this year, but not against the Bills. The Bills just need this one as well. They're a better team. I'm going to pick them to win it in MetLife. 28-17. Sorry, it's going to be a two-score game. All right, and there you go. There's your Week 6 predictions. We just had a Week 5 recap. And yeah, comment down below if you have any thoughts about this crazy week that just happened. We love commenting and interacting with you guys. Comment down below if you think if any of my Week 6 picks were just awful. You know, you can tell us that as well. We accept all opinions here. But anyways, that was a lot of fun. We'll see you guys for next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us at First and Gold Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. There you go. Goodbye.